Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to give folks just a minute here to make sure everyone gets logged in before we get started. Okay, thank you so much. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, From Innovation to Impact, How AI is Reshaping Higher Learning. I'm Kate Colonna, VP of Demand Gen here at Panopto, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this conversation today. Artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming every sector, and higher education is no exception. But unlike many conversations about AI that focus on disruption and displacement, today we're exploring a different narrative, one where AI serves as a catalyst to strengthen our education systems, close equity gaps, and extend the essential work of our educators. Over the next hour, we'll hear from two leaders who are at the forefront of responsible AI adoption in higher education. They're going to share practical insights, real-world examples, and actionable strategies that you can take back to your institutions. Before we dive in, a few housekeeping notes. First, we'd like to thank Inside Higher Ed for their help setting up today's webinar. We'll have time for Q&A at the end of the session, so please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions throughout our conversation. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants afterwards. And finally, the chat is open. We'd love to make today's conversation a presentation a conversation. Make sure if you want to chat with us that you update your selections so that you can share your comments with everyone on the webinar. This panel is brought to you by Panopto, a video management learning platform trusted by the top higher education institutions across the globe. As a key player in the learning tech ecosystem, Panopto leads the way in leveraging AI, advanced search, and deep integrations to power the future of visual learning. Now, let me introduce our speakers today. First, we have Kuljit Darni, the Chief Product Officer at Panopto. Kuljit brings over 30 years of product and technology leadership to the table with deep expertise in transforming education through innovation technology solutions. He's led the development of cloud, SaaS, and AI-powered learning platforms at companies including Ellucian, McGraw-Hill, and now Panopto, where he's driving the integration of cutting-edge AI capabilities. Joining Kuljit is Michael Brown, who serves as the Director of Educational Resources and Innovation for the Washington State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. Michael leads statewide strategy for educational technology, digital accessibility, and the responsible adoption of AI across 34 colleges. He's the architect behind Washington's AI learning community and champions a vision where technology supports rather than replaces the human touch that defines educational experiences. Michael, Kuljit, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. Before we dive in, let me quickly walk you through what we'll be covering today. We've structured this conversation into 4 key discussion blocks. First, we'll explore AI as a catalyst, looking at how AI can strengthen education systems and expand capacity rather than disrupt them. Second, we'll tackle the critical topics of ethics, integrity, and responsible AI adoption. Third, we'll get practical with AI video technology, from strategy to implementation. And finally, we'll wrap up with actionable takeaways you can implement immediately at your institution. After that, we'll open it up to your questions. So again, please use the Q&A feature throughout to submit your questions, and we'll address as many as we can. Lucien from the Panopto team is actually on here to make sure that we can address some of those questions live. So if you see them, he's here to help. But first, before we jump into block 1, I want to hear from you. I'd love to get a sense of where you all are in your AI journey. We're going to launch a quick poll, which you should see on your screen right now, and this will help our speakers tailor their insights to where you are today. Let's give everyone about 30 seconds to respond here. While you're voting, I'll mention that there are no wrong answers here. We're all at different stages, and that's exactly what makes this conversation valuable. Okay, about half of you have answered. Let's keep them coming. This is really, really interesting to see. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we can see here, we've got a lot of experimenting, a lot of implementing, some concerns, some exploring. I love to see it. I think this will be very helpful for Kuljit and Michael as they're facilitating the conversation today. Okay, we are ready for our first block. Michael, Kuljit, what does it mean to view AI as a catalyst that strengthens education systems rather than disrupts them?
Since you said my name first, Kate, guess I'll go ahead and dive in if you don't mind, Koji. For me, what that means is a mindset change, really thinking of AI instead of a replacement, but an opportunity to improve capacity, to think about how we can maybe strengthen our human connection. I believe all institutions, our main prize and pride is our ability to connect with those who come onto our campuses, whether that's our students, our staff and faculty. So I think there's an opportunity for us to really look at how we can intentionally implement AI in a way to strengthen those opportunities for us to build and really think about the future of what AI is going to be. But I really see it as a way to think about things differently from what we've been doing in the past. So I think there's an opportunity for us to see disruption as a positive and seeing us moving towards what our students need. Also thinking about what it is that we want to ensure that our staff have as we engage with our students in the classroom and outside the classroom. So that's one thing I'm thinking. That's what it means to me.
That is wonderful. Michael, well, we got introduced before, but I think we're going to have a lot of very similar thought processes. So I love you put out the mindset shift, because that's exactly how I think about it. And internally, that is how we at Panopto think about it, because that allows you to have a completely different conversation, right? It means we stop asking things like, is AI going to replace faculty or lectures? And then it rather shifts the narrative to, how do we make AI and weave it into educational systems that exist already, make them more equitable, make them more human-centered. Because personally, I think of AI as an amplifier of great teaching, not a substitute for it. And that's sort of a element I'm going to weave throughout, because that I think is key and critical. For example, in our Panopto world of video-enabled learning, we try to turn every lecture into a searchable, time-stamped, audio caption learning object. So this means students who miss class, are non-native speakers, or just need more time with materials have access to that. It also gives AI, as a set of tooling, as a framework, as engagement, gives curriculum and instruction designers insights into concepts where students might be struggling, letting them refine courses while the semester is in progress, rather than waiting till the end of semester evaluations. It frees teaching faculty from repetitive tasks such as summarization, thinking of creating the many alternate examples in order to resonate with students. So it doesn't replace teaching, it sort of augments it so that these faculty can spend more time on mentorship, on discussion, and the high impact interactions that only human beings can have. So to me, it very much, I echo what Michael said. It doesn't diminish the role of educators. It removes the friction and amplifies intent. So that's why I think AI as a catalyst is exactly the right sort of framing.
I love that both. Thank you so much. It's human-centered AI is what we keep coming back to at Panopto, and I think that's so important. Michael, what are you seeing work well across Washington's 34 colleges as educators experiment with AI in their teaching practices today?
I think the greatest thing about it is the curiosity that it's evoking. Like, there are so many individuals who are interested, and I think there's also those who may be apprehensive of moving forward. And one thing that a colleague of mine by the name of Guava Jordan, who has done really great work with working with our faculty and teaching and learning centers, is creating faculty guides for teaching with AI. And it's really a guide to help our faculty who are extremely busy, who are not necessarily experts, but don't necessarily have to be afraid of using and incorporating AI into their teaching practices, and helping them thinking about how to incorporate that into the scaffolding of their students. They're also creating opportunities for faculty to kind of just do sandbox working so that they're not being forced to adopt a certain tool, but instead to experiment, to see how it works, to kind of build that confidence that I think is really changing the way teaching is happening. I think we can go from banning it to instead using it in a way that really augments the way we do our different assignments. I know one thing that some of our faculty are doing is, instead of doing the traditional forms of tasks, they're changing it to where students are starting to engage with it. So they're using it as a thought partner, as a tool within the classroom, encouraging students, introducing into it. So instead of saying you can't use it, why don't you use it to iterate your work and then explain your steps? this is doing twofold. First of all, it's bringing the students into the fold of AI, which typically they already have, but it's also building confidence. And it's also preparing them for a future that where we're saying they're going to have to know these skills and be ready to engage with those in the workforce. So our faculty are really trying to understand how to make sure that we're preparing our students for that by themselves engaging with it, but also speaking it in a way where it's not something that's going to take away from your learning. If anything, it's a way to enhance it, which also encourages us to think about how our faculty are using it to enhance their teaching. Um, I think one thing is if we think about it as a tool and as a partner, we then get back to that human focus that we're always talking about. How do we ensure our students are, and not just our students touch every point of a college campus. So then we also think about those services that the students use. So how are we preparing our staff on our institutions to have those conversations as well? So there's a lot of work being done to really provide opportunities for guidance without necessarily forcing people to use it, but to ensure instead ignite that curiosity with actions and opportunities to really explore it and have those meaningful conversations.
I love that so much, Michael. We can't bury our head in the sand and pretend like it's not here. So how do we encourage adoption, but doing so in responsible ways? I think that's a really smart approach. I've seen a lot of you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're going to lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI. And how can faculty and institutions start that process early? It's what we're all trying to figure out together. So for both of you, how can AI complement and enhance human interaction in education rather than replace it? I think you both touched on this, but it's definitely worth double clicking into.
Sure. I'll jump in first. The so this is a very big topic, but I'll try and sort of put my flavor on it. So in my current job and my previous job, I've spent a lot of time on campus with administrators, with faculty, talking about AI, and actually previously being on campus, talking about AI. And one of the most frequent questions is it going to disrupt everything I've built, right? Because it's regarded as a tsunami that is coming in. And my answer is it doesn't have to. And I realize that's a little bit of a hedge, but that's because it's very much down to how we implement AI and use it. So at its best, AI can be thought of as a refinement for the work that we do on campus for all personas. So let me pick, using the rule of threes, let me pick three personas, right? For the student, so let's think about an AI tutor as a piece of equipment, as a tool that is available to students anytime, anywhere. The best of these promote critical thinking and work off institutional information, not random stuff off the internet, right? That's always the concern. There are also tools that can do summarization, engage, and allow students to engage with information based upon individualized learning styles and preferences. So this could be for elements such as essay review or really specific things such as a CS student wanting to debug their code through AI. And I certainly wish I had that when I was in college, but that was a long time ago. For the faculty persona, this means helping with the development of curriculum. And I don't mean write the course. What I mean is those elements such as activities for student engagement, diagnostic tools for assessing student capabilities and knowledge, right? So really that supplemental piece, because the faculty are the experts and the subject matter expert in what they are teaching and doing. But that surrounding piece is a great use of AI. This also applies to things like faculty's work in research or the revision and review of papers that they may have written. Then the third scenario or persona I will sort of pick on is the reference librarian. So these individuals do amazing work, and usually within very tight time constraints. So imagine the reference librarian that has the query from a faculty member Like, what are the recent examples of CRISPR ethics discussions I can use in my course, right? So crazy specific, a very detailed sort of set of topics. But this is where AI is great in the aggregation of information and then allowing the reference librarian to make informed decisions in what they put forward and what they take out and how they structure that. But the time savings are enormous. So this really is where I think it is an augmentation for the individual rather than the replacement.
Great. I think I agree everything what you're saying in that, and I would like to expand, but I also want to emphasize we have to remember generative AI, agentic AI, or the AI that we're talking about today does not work without humans. The input we give is going to give the output, and then we get to challenge and ask and repeat that. And so really thinking about it as a way as being a thought partner, not a way to take away your job, but to maybe enhance your job. Now, all the titles, a librarian, advisor, faculty, they are central in ensuring that what we're doing on our college campuses is rooted in transformational change. However, we also need to recognize that at the same time, sometimes we just need to think about how to do things in a way that allows us to get to that human touch without having to focus on those tasks that may take away from that. So it's an opportunity to elevate the experiences that we're doing with our students and with our faculty and things like that. But I think one of the most important for us to remember is that AI needs us. It's not the other way around. And as long as we engage with it, and if you think about it, you could have the same platform and you and the same person could put in the same question and have a completely different output. And the reason that is because of that, I'm not going to say relationship, but just that engagement you have with the tool. It's learning how you think, it's learning how you're doing. And also, we got to also understand AI is not intelligent. We are. We are providing it with the resources that it needs to enhance on that. So I think there's an opportunity for us to really think about innovation in a way that we haven't thought about for decades in higher education, just because of the way technology is disrupting how things are being done. And more importantly, what we have to also recognize is there are many aspects of AI that have been in our lives long before generative AI. So we are familiar with some of these things. We just are sometimes caught up on the terms and not recognizing that we engage with these tools on a regular basis, as well as our students. So just really want to emphasize that. The human component is necessary for AI intelligence to continue moving forward.
Absolutely. I think you hit on a number of really good points, both of you, Michael and Kuljit. And I think it gives us a lot to think about where, in one way, this is so disruptive and so fundamentally changing the way that we're all working today. And Michael, you're right. A lot of this has actually been around for a while. So a lot of it we probably are already using and adopting or used to. So I think it's smart to have that clarification and to think about it in both perspectives. Which leads us, I think, really well to our next point of conversation. And, Michael, to start with you, how can institutions use AI to close equity gaps rather than widen them? What does this look like in practice? I know this is probably a worry for many folks on the call today.
I want to first make sure and understand that my professional lens is not an equity. And I think if this is a task, which I believe we all should be thinking about, we need to incorporate those who have that lens, who have that expertise, who can guide how we engage intentionally with AI. I also believe that AI has opportunity for us to really look at some of our data in ways that we haven't before. I went to a conference and someone said, colleges are very data rich and insight poor. What does that mean is we have all this information and we're looking at numbers and sometimes we have qualitative data to support that. But when we have these tools, we can really be intentional at what we're looking at and using that as a way to really create programs, interventions, ways to ensure all of our learners have access to our tools, to really think outside the box. But once again, I think we should do this not in a vacuum. It should be done something collectively, and it should really be encouraged and included those who have the lens of really understanding what equity looks like. But we also have to remember that every college is different. Every community that the college is in is different. So everything is unique in how you approach these tasks. But one thing we definitely want to know is, or want to recognize, is that AI is giving us an opportunity to really think about our students in different ways and to individualize the services that we're providing them, along with incorporating their views and their perspectives. One thing I also want to state is that when we think about AI and equity and how we implement it into our strategic plans, I also think it's important for us to think of the workforce at our institutions. How are we preparing them? How are we ensuring that they have the language and the conversations that we're saying is important for our students to have to be global citizens? So really thinking outside the box and including everyone from every form of learning in the way that they come into our college campuses, and just being insightful in how we use these tools.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Kuljit, you said that if we make AI more convenient for students, the possibility to cheat goes down. It's a bold statement. Can you explain this counterintuitive approach to academic integrity?
I did say that, and I said that to you, and I didn't think you'd bring it up, but I stand by my statement. So the reason I got into higher education, and that's a 30-year journey for me, is that I'm a firm believer in the notion that everyone strives to be better and are inherently looking to do the right thing, right? So this is not just some sort of random thought that I have. It's been proven out over and over again. So regarding AI, and this is from personal experience because I have built tooling around this. I'm not going to mention, the specific product names, etc. Those can be found. I have come to the conclusion people will do the right thing and use the tools rather than teach, because let's take a scenario, something like a college student, and this could be a college student who's in a four-year private college, or an adult learner who is working during the day and taking care of their family in the evening time, and then finally has time to do their work, right? In the small hours of the night. Funny enough, that's probably when the four-year private college student is also doing their work, because they have a whole set of activities. And one thing is really clear these days, and that is unfortunate, is there is a whole lot of stress on campus, and there's a feeling of students being overwhelmed, regardless of the type of student. So this stress compounds in the actions. And much of this is, strangely enough, when students are looking for information, it's not that they have a scarcity of information these days, it's that they have way too much. And then you got to try and distill that down. And this is exactly, what could lead to cheating. I take my question, I drop it in a chat bot, and I get an answer back, right? Great. The student has learned nothing. And there could be penalties for that, which is obviously not something we ever want. So now imagine a scenario where the school has sanctioned AI tools that can help the students summarize the information they're working on, because they have this mountain of stuff, perhaps translate it from English to their native language for better comprehension. Potentially generate flashcards, quizzes, those types of interactive elements, right, that can help you prepare for an exam. So this second scenario, that's my lived experience. These are the types of tooling I have built. These are the types of tooling I am building right now. And the engagement is because I firmly believe people do want to do the right thing. And if you make the right thing more convenient, then it is far more likely to be used, because at the end of the day, students enter into higher education to learn, to grow. And that's the hill I'm standing on.
I appreciate that tremendously. I think you were hinting at a collaboration that Panopto has started with Anthropic. Can you talk about what considerations shaped that collaboration, and how do you build safeguards into AI tools from the start?
Sure. So the selection of an AI partner for us was very thoughtful. It was contingent upon a number of criteria, and chief among these was that there should be an alignment of mission, which is the focus on education. we wanted somebody as passionate as us about the enablement of learning. So it's well known that Anthropic has a deep commitment to building safe, trusted AI models, right? That is there, they lead with that. This approach, coupled with the excellence of Claude as an AI model, made Anthropic really an ideal partner for us to build solutions on the Panopto platform. But more importantly, and this is going to be a repeating theme, Michael mentioned it, I mentioned it, it is about the human directing the AI and not the AI as a solution in itself. And that is in the public domain as a statement from Anthropic and ourselves. So it's really this strong alignment of missions that led to the partnership. In terms of building safeguards, I mentioned I have built AI tooling, in the process of building AI tooling. So it really starts with the foundational pillars. And for me, this is safety, security, regulatory compliance, right? These are non-negotiables. It's not, hey, let's have some fun. This is going to affect people. So how do you start off in a way that you ensure trust? This is partly the AI, the LLM, but it's much more the product manager. In my instance, me, my team, the developers who are working to ensure that safety and guardrails are not compromised. So for instance, if there's a chatbot, it should detect when the user makes self-harm statements and not ignore them, but act on those. The same goes for much more nuanced elements like detecting user frustration and other actions. So I'm proud to say internally, we spend a whole lot of time discussing the impact of our ideas before a single line of code is written. So it's not jump onto the keyboard and off we go. It's what are going to be the consequences of our actions. I think a thoughtful review of potential impacts to the people you serve is how you ensure that you build safe solutions and engage in trust.
Thank you, Kuljit. That's really well thought out, and I think so important for all of us to keep in mind, whether we're building AI tools or using AI tools or deploying them across institutions. Michael, how do you balance innovation with institutional values and mission? What does responsible AI adoption really mean in practice?
I think when it comes to balancing innovation and institutional values with mission is to first identify the fact that new technology is not a standalone solution. If anything, it should be seen as a way for a college to meet its already purpose. So really identifying what is our mission? What is our goal? What is that? Improving enrollment, student engagement? What does that look like? I think like when we think about community colleges, our overall goals are access, equity, student success, workforce development. So how are we looking at AI as a way to help us reach those goals? Instead of starting off with such as a tool, really start off with the mission. What is our mission? What is our goal? And how do these AI tools help us achieve that? And also recognizing that whatever goals that we're thinking about or doing is that it does not increase inequity. It does not widen that digital divide. So really being intentional and really thinking about what is the goal for the college already existing and how can AI help provide that innovative way of doing that. I mean, if we think about it, the future of education in higher ed, we are going to continue to be doing more with less. So how are we being strategic? How are we looking at these tools? How are these tools available to us? And also not just adapting a tool statewide because I'm a state system, but instead of adapting a tool system-wide or institutional-wide, really being intentional and asking, what does this tool do and how can it meet with that? So really being cognizant of what it is that the goal and the mission of the college is and being really intentional on what the tool is going to do for that. So just remembering AI is not it cannot solve the tools for us. Once again, it's human focused. We have to be a part of those conversations and we have to use it in a way that allows us to really do what we already do, but do it more efficiently and do it with more intention.
I love that. And I think it comes back to what we're all anchored and what we're all focused on is learning. And how can it be a tool to help support learning across institutions? And so I think it's so important to keep that in mind as we're going through this. Moving forward, you'll see a quote here on the screen that Michael shared with us as we were prepping for this session that I cannot get enough of. Change is rooted in the past, and transformation is rooted in the future. So how do we take AI from ideas to actions, bringing us into the future? Kuljit, when we're thinking about AI tools for teaching, what do you see as the most important criteria to evaluate? And since many platforms, Panopto among them, now offer AI-driven video creation, how can this kind of feature help faculty engage students without compromising quality?
Okay, I will break that in two. By the way, I'm going to uh, propose a 7-step framework, and I'm happy to pop that in the chat later. So for people, if it's helpful, this is how I think about tooling in general, right? Because it's around value creation. And I have tailored this for teaching and learning, but you can easily modify it for user productivity, employee productivity. So to me, it starts with pedagogical efficacy. The tool needs to facilitate and show improvement in learning outcomes, right? That's job number one. Is it going to lead to learning outcomes? The second is faculty augmentation. So the tool that you're looking at creating must reduce workload and enable critical thinking. So that's also going to be a running theme in what I say, because I'm really passionate about it, is the enablement of critical thinking. And it should never bypass the instructor or the faculty member. The third is around equity and accessibility. We have touched upon that a lot as the provider, as the vendor. To me, that means WCAG compliance is not optional. Multilingual capabilities are not just a nice to have, right? It's a means of engagement. Fourth would be privacy and data governance. So FERPA compliance would be an example of this. Transparent data ownership would be another example. 5, interoperability and true cost. So we know as vendors, as Panopto as a solution, we have to integrate to what the campus has, and the campus's main system for engagement is the LMS. Therefore, we must play nice with the LMS. These tools must play nice with the LMS. And also, you got to have sustainable economics, and that's that true cost of the solution. So the sixth element for me is around transparency. Faculty have to be able to understand the recommendations that the tool puts forward, right? None of this sort of mystery stuff, this hand waving, just trust me. It needs to be rational. The seventh is around vendor viability and community. So does it have an active user base? Does it inspire confidence in the company in terms of support for years to come? And the answers to all 7 of these things, hopefully, is a yes. And it's degrees as to what that support is, not no's, because you want to make sure what you're adopting is going to be rigorous. So I think it's this type of disciplined approach. And this is one framework. I mean, there are many, but I wanted to come out with a fairly lightweight one that people could find value in. So the second half of your question is near and dear to me. So yes, Panopto does have a AI video creation product. It is called Eli. And so let's do another imagine exercise. So imagine a platform where a faculty member or a curriculum designer can take existing class slides and notes, so it's their work, and have that material be turned into dynamic video that is narrated by avatars, and those could be based on human actors provided by the tool, or really cool custom ones of the faculty member themselves. All right. These videos are different from text because they allow for engagement. They have clickable elements, they have quizzes, they have interactivity. These features also keep the students focused and engaged because you are having to interact with them. So better yet, all of these content are customizable and you can update them anytime. You can even translate the content, both the narration that happens, as well as the text in the video, to dozens of different languages, right? Coming back to sort of those elements I laid out in that framework. So you see, this approach, this AI video approach, doesn't dilute the original work because it is based upon the original materials. Rather, it's transforming these materials and making the content more engaging for the students. So it's also very low friction. And Panopto's one solution, but being sort of putting it out to the audience, please go out and try the one that you like, and experiment with it and have some fun. Just it's low stakes. Give it a go.
I love that. Thank you, Kuljit. And you've definitely inspired some people in the chat who would love your framework if you're willing to share. And if
Oh,
not, we can always follow up with that afterwards.
I will drop it right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Michael, thinking about what you have been through, if you were starting your strategic mission-driven AI adoption today, where would you start?
I think I would go back to what I said earlier. Start with the mission before a tool. I think any idea or any new technology should be evaluated by asking yourselves, will this enhance our mission or will it distract from it? I think we really need to be conscientious and intentional of what it is we're trying to implement and why we're using AI. If you adopt a tool and then you have to spend time training people on how to use that, is that really furthering what it is your mission is for this adoption of the tool? So really being intentional and asking yourself, what does that look like and what are we hoping to do with that? And then bringing in the conversation and bringing in the people who are actually a part of the work. I have sometimes see that when these conversations are being had, some of the voices that are really integral in understanding the experiences of the students, the experiencing and engagement of the students are often not included. So ensuring that those conversations and those individuals are included, really thinking about what does data look like? How do we gain that feedback? And how do we ensure that the mission of our colleges is including the work that is being done by those who may not be at the table having those discussions? So I really think it's important to be inclusive with that and really having a holistic understanding of what it is that the institution is trying to do. And to remember that the mission is what is the catalyst for the tool and not the other way.
I love that so much. It can be so easy to get excited about a shiny new thing, but let's ground ourselves in the mission. Why are we here today? And how is this going to help support that? I think that's a really good anchoring. Thank you, Michael. Okay, into our last section, and I'm seeing some really great questions come in, so make sure to continue to drop those in so that we can cover as many as possible during our Q&A section. But driving into this, Michael, Kuljit, what makes this moment in AI adoption different from previous waves of education technology? I think we've all seen a lot of changes come. What's different about today?
I think for me, what I see with the adoption of AI is typically when we look at higher ed, when something new comes out, it usually starts in one section of the campus and then it kind of just spreads its way out, trickles down, maybe in the classroom, if there's a new tool, and then we see how it works, and then we may implement it in different aspects. AI is completely different. It's kind of like it is touching every touch point at the same times. And so therefore, colleges have to think systematically. How do we address these conversations? What does it look like? Sometimes other people are using it, and that's another thing. AI is being used for different functions. An advisor, a librarian, a faculty member, they are all using it to help their work that they're doing, to improve proficiency, to really deepen their understanding and engagement. So AI is really enforcing our colleges and institutions to think at a faster pace, to respond differently. Going back to that quote you had change is rooted in the past, transformation is rooted in the future. It's really forcing us to think about, okay, what are we preparing these students for moving forward, and how are we engaging them with that as well? But I also want to bring back to the point where the difference between AI is that because it's touching every touch point, the people who work on campus are also being influenced by that change. And that is also encouraging conversations that are varied, that are rooted in personal experiences and missions in different offices and programs. But I think there are a lot of conversations being had on institutions at once that can cause us to, or can encourage us to come together and collaboratively think about what the future of higher ed is looking like, and how does our mission around cultivate that, and what does that look like? So just understanding that also the speed and the pace of this technology is really causing some, forces us to think outside the box, and also thinking about what are our students asking from us? What are they looking from us? And what conversations are we having with industry when we think about the future of work? And how is that a part of the conversations that we have when we think about our missions moving forward?
Fantastic. So it's hard to follow that up. This is a funny one for me, because when I sort of first started hearing about it, I actually thought this was going to be the same as every other wave. So I was on campus during the LMS wave, for instance, to select and evaluate LMS. So very exciting technology, but real headaches in adoption, governance, and then figuring out what are you going to do with all these exploding set of course assets, right? And similarly, when the online learning and MOOC wave came, I was on a different campus, but I was still on campus. And there was this big bold headline for both of those, which is the physical campus is irrelevant. And it's, for those of us who are responsible, we worried about brand dilution, revenue models, cannibalization of our degrees, etc. But, after working with AI now for quite a while, I am very much on the same page as Michael. I think it is different. And for fear of repeating a little bit, but the first reason I would say is adaptability is at a level we have never seen before, right? The previous tools we had, you kind of adapted to the tool. They were rigid. With AI, it is real time. It is able to adapt to the learner, the user, so the researcher, administrator, etc. That shifts the narrative from a one size fits all to individualized experiences. And then the second one is really the kind of core, which is AI is absolutely everywhere. This is not a higher education tool, solution, higher education wave. It is in every single industry, which also means, though, we can learn from every single industry, healthcare, finance, and everyone else, which means best practices, ethical frameworks, technical standards can be shared across the board, right? That's super helpful. And then the third element that I sort of think about is the scale of possibility. So this is the first time we really have a realistic shot of delivering high quality, personalized learning to millions without diluting the on-campus experience. So done right, this can scale faculty and their work so that the quality of the teaching and learning is preserved. For those of you thinking this has overtones of mastery learning principles and Bloom's, you're right, because that's sort of very near to how I think is that reach is all about personalized education and making the student feel safe in what they, how they engage with their materials and feel comfortable with them. So when they do the high stakes test, it is not something out of left field. So bottom line, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of risk, but this is why you approach it in a deliberate way, because you can have large scale impact and still maintain that human connection.
I love how you both touched on too that this isn't a transformation that just education is going through. Everyone is going through this, and we can learn from each other, and we can use these experiences to help prepare for future experiences as well. So I think that's a really insightful and thoughtful connection there. To wrap us up, Kuljit, you can start. What is the biggest takeaway from today's conversation that you want the audience to walk away with?
All right. So I'll keep with my rule of threes, but really the first one is the biggest one, right? So home decorating or or webinars, I'll always have three. They're easy to remember. The first element really is focus on the human workflow, not the technology, right? And this was really a big shift in my mindset as my background had a lot of technology in it, but really the shift was around impact. And this is also what I feel with AI is we're all grappling with it. Michael mentioned some really big things here, which is there's lots of new ideas, there's shrinking budgets, those things are in conflict. So the narrative has to be different. It should start with questions like, how do we give our faculty 10 hours a week back? How do we give students a personalized, low stakes way to catch up on concepts that they missed, right? Very tangible outcomes. Technology at the end of the day has to remove friction, not create new silos. So I can dream in my role as product person, I can dream up all sorts of cool things, but if it takes a faculty member 6 different systems to bounce around what I have dreamt up in order to create a learning module or a syllabus, then I've done a terrible job. The second point, I think, is that equity is the new ROI. Because, and this is, again, lived experience and conversations both myself and my colleagues have had on campus these days, is that the AI projects that get traction aren't the flashy ones. They're the ones that have hard deliverables, such as measurable gains in student outcomes, in retention, right? So this would be things like tools that enable individualized learning. And I know I use that example a lot, but that is really resonant. And then the third element is don't get stuck in governance. Govern lightly, iterate quickly, and keep the human in the center. So don't wait for the perfect policy, small pilots, and cross-functional AI working groups made up of staff, students, faculty. So the institutions that we see moving the fastest right now are saying exactly the same thing, which is the technology is maturing faster than our policies ever will. And I will refer back to Michael on that, because that's exactly what he said. And we hear this from all of the leading institutions. So we have to lead with trust. We have to lead with shared values and a healthy sense of curiosity, because AI is here to stay. So it's really, how do we intend to use it?
Wonderful. I agree with you 100%. And I think also another impact I would think is the human impact. That's what I would want to walk away with. And when it comes to how colleges and institutions are preparing for it, I really encourage us to think about our own personal experiences with it, how it encourages or influences our everyday, and thinking about how those conversations and experiences can influence already set policies that we have at our colleges. Maybe there's a way to update them with AI and how we're using them, but more importantly, thinking about just what does the present look like, because the present is currently the future, and how are we really preparing ourselves to really engage in a world where we're going to have to speak a language with computers, a language that we create, a language that also influences the way we engage with each other. So I just really want to hope we walk away and understanding that we as humans impact how AI is going to work for us at our institutions. And the more open we are to innovation, and also the more open we are to having conversations. I know a lot of students and individuals are thinking about the environmental impact of AI. So really being intentional on what we implement and not just identifying a new product and saying that that's going to solve our problems. But if this is a mission-driven goal, how are we implementing that in a way that's intentional and also conscious about the future planet and the future of work?
Thank you both. Extremely well said. And I guess that leads us into our Q&A section. We've got some great questions that have come into the chat during this presentation. Please feel free to continue to add those in. We've got time to tackle a few of these. Our first question that came in, do you worry that utilizing AI for tutoring or curriculum design leaves out the importance of community? What about relationships with colleagues or student to student?
No, I think AI could be a tool to enhance what is already being done to create those curriculums and the development of that. I think if we could really encourage colleges to ensure that there's some kind of AI literacy and fluency for our individuals on our campuses to understand how that works, I think there's an opportunity to collaborate. I also think there's a way to use these tools to collaborate in a way that deepens our understanding of we are creating in a way that's intentional and inclusive. So I think there's an opportunity for AI to strengthen what we already do, especially if we're intentional. The fear of losing community could be dissipated if we're intentional on how we're doing this work and including those experiences. And when I say experiences, I also encourage us to think about the people who are doing the work every day with the students and asking them what does those conversations look like? What are those experiences including? Just people at the bookstore, those at the front desk of financial aid. I think there are relatively important conversations that could be included in that collaboration.
I love that, Michael. I think you hit it spot on. It is an addition, not a take. It's not something that's taking away. Kuljit, I'm curious your perspective here. Considering you said these AI tools have to work with the LMS, how do you feel about AI adaptive learning?
AI adaptive learning. That is a very, very broad topic. Was there a little container to that, or
There
just
was not, but maybe we could think about
yeah,
how could
sure,
AI support adaptive
yeah,
learning? How could
yeah,
it be a tool? I think we've
okay,
got some resources that we've even talked about within Panopto that could support that.
right. So the reason it's broad is because it now you have a complementary system, and the point of entry being the LMS, and then the system in the back. So for us, Panopto. Um, so it really is what you intend to get out of the solution. So if the solution in the back, let's just call it product X, is doing the adaptive cycle. So it is AI driven. It is making quote unquote decisions based upon student interaction, student performance, and then putting that forward. What you're doing is using the LMS as a launching point and then handling most of the experience in Platform X, right? And that is perfectly fine, by the way. So because you got to simplify the engagement point for the student. What the tool has to do, because it's doing this computational intensive work in itself, is provide the outcomes back to the LMS. It can't fracture that experience because the grade book is held in the LMS. This student information system is talking to the LMS and can't have a random set of interactions. So that's what I mean. This is how you play nice with the LMS. It's not that everything needs to happen in the LMS. It's that the LMS needs to be preserved on campus because it is currently the single sort of entry point. So students aren't bouncing around. Therefore, as you select a tool, as be it an adaptive AI tool or anything else, that it has that interaction and that engagement with the LMS and pass backs back into the gradebook.
Thank you. Really, really helpful. I think on that note, quickly, how do we think we should rethink assessment in the age of AI?
Well, I don't necessarily think we need to rethink assessment. I think we just need to realize we can assess things more broadly now and more finite with these tools. We can ask questions that maybe we didn't know how to even get the output that we were thinking of before. Maybe there's something specific we want to know. I think if anything, this is a tool that can enhance that experience and that opportunity. It could also just be a thought partner for you to have a conversation with your college campuses on what assessment looks like. So maybe really outlining what does that conversation look like? How can we have it in a way that incorporates a new way of thinking or preparation for the future?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Kuljit. Sorry.
Yeah, no, this was a big piece, much more so sort of in a previous position, because I was building courseware and assessment along with it. This is one of those pieces where it depends of what type you're talking about, exactly what Michael mentioned, right? If you're preparing the student, AI can play, to me, personal opinion, a much greater role because the stakes are lower. You're creating a safe environment for engagement and practice. If it's the high stakes assessment, grades are dependent upon how the student performs. This is not where you copy and paste AI output. Right. And this is where the human in the middle is just the most important thing, because they ensure the quality. The subject matter expert is the person. So that is how we maintain high quality, how we maintain rigor and discipline is the AI. I mean, Michael touched on this all the way through. AI is a useful tool, but at the end of the day, it is very much a tool. And we, the human, are the ones who have to take that output, manage it, massage it, etc., and then put that forward, right? It's a super useful tool, but it is by no means the way we generate assessments and say, yeah, it's going to be great.
It's on us to make sure that we're using it in a way that really comes back to learning. If you think about when I was in school, teachers would say, you need to learn how to do this math problem because you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, joke's on them. We do, but if you didn't understand the foundation of how to do the equation, that calculator is useless. And so it's the same thing. We have these tools available to us, but if they're not teaching us the foundational knowledge that we need, it's useless. We don't know what questions to ask. We're not going to get the right answers.
I'm a big fan of open book exams, right? For exactly that point, Kate. I mean, it depends how you phrase it, and what the scenario is. If it's multiple choice, actually, way back when my physics teacher said, it doesn't matter. You can use your book, even on the multiple choice. If you don't know it, you're going to get it wrong. That's probably what shaped that line of thinking, that you have to know the material and really understand it. Well.
Absolutely. And we have somehow run to the end of our time. Goodness, time flies. There's some more great questions in here. We'll make sure to follow up with the attendees as we can after the fact. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Michael and Kuljit. This has been an incredibly rich conversation. I know I'm leaving feeling very inspired, and I hope the audience feels the same way and equipped to take action, which I think is our most important takeaway here. So please make sure this link here allows you to connect with all of the speakers on LinkedIn if you'd like to learn more and continue the conversation. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be sent to all registrants, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us with follow-up questions. To our speakers, Michael and Kuljit, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experiences, and your vision of how AI can truly reshape higher learning for the better. And thank you so much again to Inside Higher Ed for their support on this webinar today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.